Okay, this is the tutorial video to do computer aided manufacturing on Fusion. And I'm going to start, it's something familiar in VCarve, just to build on some concepts. Remember in VCarve, on the left side, we called it the CAD software, computer aided design, where you design all of these different features that you want. On the right side, there was the CAM part, computer aided manufacturing, where you could go in and do different types of toolpaths and find parameters and features of that. I'm going to use the keychain just as a simple example. And I made just a little fun thing up, and I set a toolpath as a 2D profile toolpath. I set my cut depth. I picked a cutter, a V cutter. I go in here. I set the cutter spindle speed, how fast it spins, how fast it's going to move, other things you've seen. You can do that. They call it a vector, remember, on the line. So I want to have the cutter follow along that line and go around and do that engraving. Based on that, put a name on it, and I hit calculate. It switches windows to that simulation window, and I already reset it before and do it again. I'm going to slow down the speed just so you can remember what's going on. When I press play, the computer tries to do a simulation of a cutter spinning and following those vector paths, and we've seen this before. Again, if I went full speed, boom, it'd be done in a flash here. Okay, it's supposed to be done in a flash, but you get the idea. So what I want to do is transfer that idea to a different one over here in Fusion. Same keychain idea, same idea as designing and camming it, but I want to build on stuff. Before I switch the video, I forgot, you're doing your design in the design tab up here. There's different features. So under design, a couple of things. Remember, when you're drawing, make sure you're doing it in inches. Under here, I have some sketches. I'm going to point something out. I want to look at my sketch, and this will come out when I do the simulation. I made my keychain 3 inches long, 3/4 of an inch high, and I can't show it, but the thickness of the extrusion was 3/16. Okay, so make sure when you draw your keychain, you know exactly what these numbers are, because it's important after. I'll finish my sketch. So I'm done with my design. I have what I want. All I want to do just to learn the basics is do the engraving around that selection. So there are other features of the Fusion software, lots of different stuff to learn. But for now, we're going to the manufacturing part, the computer aided manufacturing. Oops, why is it doing that? And in that feature, you get to go in and make changes to the toolpaths, the cutter settings, etc., etc. When you select the manufacturing feature, a whole new menu system pops up, and it's essentially 3 things we need up here. We need to do a setup, we need to pick what kind of cut we want to do, and then we're going to go over here. We're not going to run in our G code just yet. We're just going to run a simulation, see what it would look like if we actually cut it on the machine. I've already done some of the setup, so it's a little bit different, but when you do it the first time, you're going to go under setup. And this is where you get to choose what kind of machine you want to run your simulation with, whether it's a mill, turning, or a lathe, water jet, 3D printer, etc. Then you're going to go over here and pick what kind of cut we're going to do, and you're going to go down here and do an engrave. I'm only doing that because it's simple and it's familiar from our keychain project. There are other things you can do. By all means, all kinds of advanced stuff. So over here are my setups. When I click on this, I get that new setup menu. This is what's going to pop up. And essentially, there's a few things you need to set here. First thing is the machine. For now, leave the default. We don't care. We're not going to select a specific CNC router or a specific vertical mill or whatever. We'll just leave generic. What you do have to do is do the setup. What kind of operation do you expect to do here? Milling, that's what we're going to do. Milling, routering, CNC milling, etc. Turning is lathe stuff. Cutting would be like a laser cutter or a plasma cutter or a torch and whatever. And additive machining is like 3D printers. You keep adding plastic to it as you build up your layers, but we want milling. Next, bit of a confusing idea. The work coordinate system. Where's my origin? Essentially, that's what we're talking about. WCS. And for us, we're going to use the actual model. Because our keychain is a simple rectangular box, you can imagine that the piece of material that you started with is the stock, or the piece of material, whether it's aluminum or wood or plastic. Just like in B-carb, remember, that piece is the stock. That is the idea of the keychain based on the dimensions that you gave it. If you remember up in here, where you said the size of your keychain. So in Fusion, when you're getting a coordinate system, you need your origin down here in the corner. And the stock point is the point. If I hold it over, a little pop-up comes, you can read it. Select a point on the stock box to set as the part origin. And I already set it down in this corner, but you can click on this and then it says, oh, do you want that to be the stock point, the origin of the stock? And I go down, oops, I always made sure it's that point. Okay, so that's your point you've set. So you need to make sure you set that. When you go here, I struggled the first time because I went to set up the stock box, the size of the actual box. And this is a really good pop-up, and I wish I could move my mouse to show you, but there's 4 pictures, and the picture in the top left is the idea of a fixed size box. You see inside that sort of imaginary glass box, that's the part. And it gets manufactured or machined out of a box or a sort of a stock or a piece of material that's the shape of a box. And then you start cutting and shaping around it till you're left with what you want. And everything else is scrap. So that's the stock box idea. And I can't show you with the cursor, but you get the center. Now, you can do other things, whether it's cylinders or tubes and stuff. And again, it shows up in that pop-up how they create that concept in your head. Here's where I had trouble. I wanted the stock mode to reflect the size of the keychain as the box of stock, the material that I started with. And I kept getting this in millimeters. Why is this in millimeters? And I happened to look over here. In the manufacturer, you too have to go in here and change it because the default seems to be millimeters. So I had to change that. And then all of a sudden, the width of my stock box, the depth, and the height, there it is there. There's my keychain dimensions. So that agreed. So once I have picked what operation, my point, and my stock size as a fixed, I clicked OK. Then I'm OK. Next part, I need to set what cut I want to do. And I went down here and did engrave. Well, I've already set it here, so I'm just going to double click. But you will get this box. Once you set it up, you will get, let me just get this out of the way, you will get this sort of simulation thing going. And let me show you if I can orient this around. This is the cutter that I chose, and this is the holder for the cutter. And I tried to orient it so it will cut on this face. And that was a part that I struggled with in Fusion a bit, trying to make sure that it would, how do I say, it was cutting on this face. What seemed to be happening is I had it cutting on this little flat face, and then it was cutting on the back side, and it was cutting all over. And I struggled, like, why am I having this trouble? And I think I sorted it out. So I'm going to share what I figured it out with you. Under the engrave tool, again, go under engrave. There are other ones, but you want engrave. You should get this pop up. There are 5 tabs. We're only going to worry about the first 2. First one, pick your tool. What kind of tool am I going to do my cutting on? Now, because it's engraving and I already selected it, you can go here and there's this huge library. If you click here, there's all these different tools that are in the library that you can pick up. Millimeter ones, sorry, metric ones, that's the wrong word, and imperial ones. And you can go in and play and find around till you find something. When you pick something, for some reason, you get a picture of it. For some reason, I wasn't picture on some of them. Well, now it is. So in this case, I picked a different kind of cutter. There's the cutter and there's the holder. And I think these ones are actually the same. When you have yours highlighted, you can go in and change all kinds of the geometry on it and stuff. So it's a huge tool library, and you can obviously go and modify your own. But you need a tool. Pardon me. Spindle speed, just like in VCarve, I put it at 5,000. Feed rate, I put it at 30. And there's some interconnected feature numbers. Don't worry about them. Geometry. This is the one I had some struggles with. There's two basic settings here. The first one this is the one I really struggled with, tool orientation. The tool orientation is this XYZ orientation. Basically, again, I needed the tool to attack my stock, my material from this side, not from the top side or the other side. So I ended up clicking here and choosing select the Z axis because that was the one I wanted. And when I did that, I went in here and I went and I picked this edge as my Z axis. I can't remember how I did it. And it worked. So basically I want the Z axis here. I'm going to hit cancel because I think I'm going to mess it up. So I went in here and I wanted my tool to basically attack from the other side. Now watch, if I flip this to Z and I say okay, you see my problem is I have the tool attacking from the other side. So I don't want to spend too much time with it because I got myself buggered the last time, but you'll see the idea. You can play with it and you make sense of it. So you need to orient your tool that way so it's attacking from that face, and you can play around here and figure that out. It's not that hard. It's just I keep screwing it up and I don't want to waste video time. So that orients your cutter, but what are you going to cut? What geometry are you going to contour with a cut? And this is a bit different than VCarve. VCarve always called them vectors. Follow the vector, follow the vector. And here they call them chains. So when I click on chains, I already did two. I'm going to finish it here for this video. I clicked on that and that. Now you have to be careful because it's picking up surfaces. So I don't want that one inside. I want this one on the outside, and I want that one. So you have to kind of fiddle with it and make sure that you're picking the outside edges. And be careful you don't do something like that or something. I think I just bugged it. I don't know if I can turn that off again. Yeah. And then this one. Now I did something here. Oh, wait, I can undo. And no, I really buggered it. Two chains. Let me try again. This one, this one. Yeah, I don't want to show the bad example. One of the things, I know I'm doing something wrong, but I just don't know what it was. So I'm going to click all of that. And those are all of the surfaces that I want, and they call them chains. So I have 13 chains. If I tried to figure out if I messed up on how I undo that, I can't. I just had to X and start it all over again. So it's a bit finicky. So then I click OK. And then if I zoom out, I have all my chains set up. You can see the path. I have my cutter ready. So I'm ready on all my setup. I'm going to run the simulation. And this is pretty easy. There's a few things. You can go into statistics, and there's your cut time. There's a few other things I showed down, but you can poke around on your own. Um, Under here, I can just turn the holder off. If I don't want to see the tool holder, I can just hold the shaft, and it just shows there's the little part that you clamp on, and there's the flute. When they call it flute, the flute is that tip of the cutter that has those grooves in it for the chips to come out. So you don't have to show the holder in your simulation. You can show it solid too. Transparent, I guess, so you can kind of see where it's going. You can show the toolpath. You see those little yellow lines turning off where it's going to jump around on. I don't know if you want to see that. And the show points, I think, are just the anchor points for each of the individual chains or vector paths. So it's up to you. You don't have to show the material in terms of the stock material, like that solid box that the stock came from. If you want or don't want, you can see that. Okay, somehow it doesn't really seem to make a difference, but I left it on. So a few settings there to play with. Now, down on the bottom, let me move that out of the way, you have the play option. And once you've got it all set, you run play, and it runs the simulation of how it cuts that part. You can reset, go back, and then play it again. Now, I can slow it way down, just like in VCarve, if I want to concentrate, like, what's it really doing? Okay. But, oops, what did I do? Stop, reset, play it again. Okay. So, oh, now I did something really buggered. Oh, there we go. Speed it up. Yeah. So you can see the simulation that way. Okay. That's it. That sort of explains the best I can about it. Let me just recap quickly. In your design mode, make sure it's in inches. Make sure you know what your size is of your piece. When you switch to the simulation mode for machining, you have to do a setup. Make sure you set everything. Pick what kind of cut you're going to do. Engrave for us. And once you've got that all set, you can run the simulation and see how it looks. That's it. I hope it works.